I run a small computer repair business, but we're looking at getting accreditation to work with a much bigger global brand. So we need to update our data management structures so they'll work for us, access some historical data, and comply with both outside organisations' own bespoke data management systems and GDPR. Data Vault feels like the right fit, but what are the steps that we should go through to confirm this, and what should we do to prepare our business for the changes? So, Michael, given that you are our GDPR expert, we'll start with you.
Okay, cool, thanks. The first thing is what I would what I hear sometimes is that the complaint essentially that Data Vault is good for very large enterprises, but not or enterprise data warehouse systems, but not for the small case. And I don't agree with that. If you have let's say a low set of requirements, the Data Vault is also very simple. It could be just be a, let's say, a non-business link about the maybe service requests, and then some hubs around it for customers, the products, maybe the store where you did the repair and so on. A couple of satellites on the hubs, maybe a non-HISA satellite on the non-HISA link. Very simple design. And then you can quickly derive a star schema from this, just visualize it out essentially. So in a very small case, the Data Vault is also simple as long as you have a low number of requirements. But then, yeah, sure, when you have GDPR as a requirement, it's not actually, it's just one more requirement essentially. So the idea would to split the satellite based on the personal classification of the incoming attributes. So you have a bit more entities, right? So that's number one. So start with a small use case. Maybe if you're a smaller case, then you have less requirements, and then the Data Vault should be more simple essentially. And then what I would typically do is, in order to introduce Data Vault in a client, we start in the first step. We start with a sprint where we assemble the team, where we make sure we have the resources available, the servers, the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure, and so on. The room where we can work, the licensing of the tools that we need, the laptops, the user account, and so on. And then in the next sprint, we look at an architecture. So you might have already something in mind how you want to set up the Data Vault enterprise data warehouse. So you look at some layers, maybe some staging areas, maybe in the data lake, maybe some raw Data Vault layer where you have the raw data, the business vault, and the information mart. Set it up and see if you can shoot some data, some actual data from an actual source, all through the layers into the target. Once you've done with that, next sprint would then focus on the implementation of some business value, some actual reports, sprint by sprint essentially. That's the basic idea how I would essentially introduce Data Vault to the business or to the organization.
And we certainly know of lots of people who have built and managed Data Vaults by themselves as the single resource in an organization. Nols, I know you did exactly that. Do you have any perspective on this particular question?
There's a couple of things that comes to mind, and I'm in agreement with Michael that, in fact, I'll be a little bit more extreme. The smaller the organization, the more they need a Data Vault. They will suffer from less integration because it's a smaller organization, therefore less development across a strategic approach or those type of things. So they will struggle with the big organization problems more so than they do with large organizations, which do drive out some of the integration aspects as such from digital strategies, etc. But I want to step back a little bit and say, if you're a small computer repair business and you're starting to play in a much bigger field, it is always good to sort of just sit back, articulate clearly what exactly you want to achieve from a strategy perspective, and that helps them drive exactly where you want to do and the kind of things you need to have in place. And so clearly integration to an external source, absolutely necessary, and Data Vault shines when it comes to integration. You'll have some additional heightened security and access requirements, GDPR being one of them. You will have to essentially be able to rapidly address additional impacts or outside demands from outside organizations for the accreditation. And so the ability to respond quickly, having a clear statement of your strategy, your approach, and your rigor that you are putting in place will be necessary as part of that accreditation, whether you like it or not, more often or not. So that's, I would say that sort of step back, do the strategic thinking, and then finding the approach that helps you to deal with those challenges are key. Now, Data Vault does and has reliably demonstrated that it does give you the ability to rapidly adapt and adopt and integrate across a number of bespoke or heterogeneous systems. And so that does bring the necessary flexibility that you have. Now, the beauty, and this is sort of to your question, Julian, small organizations also tend to be, me, myself, and I decide what is the best thing. And so sometimes you get to do innovative things very quickly and very rapidly without too much sort of political drag and overhead and those type of things. So that is certainly the case that you can do. So sometimes Data Vault is achieved, not because people understand necessarily what they are subscribing to, but they essentially look at the features and functions thereafter, and you go, well, that's what Data Vault provides, and that is essentially a great springboard for you then to demonstrate and prove. Like all business sponsors, they are somewhat skeptical, and that is excellent, which means that if you delight them, they're a champion for life. So those are the kind of opportunities that in smaller organizations really is a little bit more exciting than larger organizations. Less politics, less issues to deal with, per se. But as a small organization, building a foundation like this, where you can respond in a much broader environment with larger organizations and essentially outperforming the larger organizations, is certainly one of the things that you can achieve as such. So all the best with taking the small repair business into a larger scheme.
Yeah, it sounds like a journey, doesn't it, Michael?
Yeah, just one comment. Sorry. We have seen multiple cases where a relatively smaller organization has built a data warehouse with Data Vault, had a solution running, and they had the reports and everything else, got taken over by a larger corporation, and they realized, up in the new headquarters, they realized, well, our enterprise data is not as good as theirs. So they really had a struggle, essentially. And then when political concerns come in, when the smaller firm that you just purchased over can't have a better solution than yours, that's a really fun environment. But yeah, we've seen these situations a lot, actually.
We have also seen that. And I think maybe when you're smaller, it's easier to be more agile, right? And do things in small chunks. You don't have big executives saying, oh, I want the world. But do you think that kind of applies, Michael, to someone who's dealing with a departmental solution as well, where they maybe they're not part of an enterprise data warehouse, but more a departmental warehouse? Is it the same approach?
Yeah, that's what we also have with a couple of clients where they build an enterprise data with the department only, not for the central enterprise or for the central enterprise, essentially. So that's why it is. What I always strongly suggest to them, essentially, is to establish standards. So if there's already some other department building on a data vault and they already have some standards in place, go there, use them, even if you don't agree with them fully, right? If it's good enough, if there's no mistake in it, if there's no issue in it, go for it and use it, because then you can essentially join these independently developed data solutions. You can join them as long as they follow the same standards, naming conventions, hashing, especially hashing, and so on. So on modeling styles and so on. That's what I would suggest.